How to master Kung Fu. Not today, I don't think. How to smoke baby back ribs, but a series. Hmm. Hey there, YouTube. Well, today marks the start of my quest to find the best way to cook ribs. You know, if you ask around, you get all sorts of answers, but the most common one you'll hear is the 2-2-1 method. Now, the 2-2-1 method of smoking baby back ribs is generally done between 225 and 250 for 2 hours unwrapped, 2 hours wrapped in foil, and the last hour unwrapped. Now, if you've never smoked ribs before, you can follow along and use this video as a guide. I'm not a rib expert by any means. There's no barbecue champion trophies in my house. I'm just an ordinary guy who likes to barbecue and document his cooks and mistakes. Mistakes are good for me, and they're good for you. You know, if I make them, I learn from them, and hopefully you will as well. So as we get started for this cook, removing the membrane is the first step. It's easy to remove. Just slide a knife under the membrane along the bone and pull off using a paper towel for grip. If you buy your ribs from a butcher shop, it may have already been removed, but 90% of the time, it's still there. So for this cook, my first of the 2-2-1, I decided to apply a little yellow mustard to act like glue, just like on a pork butt, and some Adam's rib rub, which is made close by in Garner. This rub is kind of like a pre-rub, you could say. It breaks down into a liquid marinade after a few hours or an overnight application. And so that's what I did here. I just applied it, wrapped it, set it in the fridge overnight. Now I know what you're thinking. I too have heard some folks say that overnight application is wrong. They'll say that applying a rub overnight will draw out too much moisture and the ribs will dry out. Personally, I don't believe that's true. Competition competitors apply their rubs shortly before a cook. That's because they have to. It's all about time management there. In your backyard, though, time is on your side. When smoking ribs on your WSM, you don't need a ton of coals. Maybe a chimney and a half to 2 chimneys will do the trick. Today I'm throwing on some cherry and pecan chunks for a lighter, sweeter smoke. You'll need to fill your water pan about halfway to 3/4 of the way full. Once I had her all assembled, I dialed down the bottom vents so she was sitting pretty at about 225 to 230 degrees. Now, because my WSM is an 18, I'm forced to cut my ribs in half so they fit. It's not a major issue. I know it looks cooler as one slab on the 22, but in my opinion, it's much easier to handle them as half racks. It also gives the opportunity for you to try different rubs and different sauces on your ribs in the same cook. Today I'm using the rub made by Bone Sucking Sauce. It's a rub made right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, I would generally apply my rub, even if I hadn't applied a pre-rub, at least a few hours before I put them on the smoker. But for time's sake, I just decided to apply it and throw them on when she came to town. So after the first hour, I applied a little mop and redusted the ribs with some rub. In the past, I've used a spray bottle instead of a mop. And frankly, I think the spray bottle is better. It doesn't damage the rub at all, doesn't take anything off. It's totally up to you, it's your preference. Different strokes for different folks. After those first 2 hours, it's time to pull them off and wrap them in foil. Some folks wrap their ribs with a little apple juice, even Coke, but the professionals and most experienced cooks will use brown sugar, honey, and liquid butter. I suppose you can put it on both sides of the rib. In this particular cook, I just chose to put it on the top. Now when you wrap your ribs, be sure to double your foil or use a heavy-duty grilling type foil because the bones will cut through the foil if you're not careful when you're wrapping them. Wrapping styles will vary from video to video you watch, so find one that works for you. So here's where I messed up. I left the ribs full for a solid 2 hours. Professionals will recommend that you place the full ribs meat side down for 1 hour drain the liquid or juice inside after that hour, and then return them, still foiled, meat side back up for the second hour of this phase. Not doing so can, in my opinion, oversteam the ribs, making the meat fall off the bone too early. Fall off the bone sounds good, but not when you still have a step to go, and this is exactly what happened to me. I honestly thought about just calling it a day, and I was afraid to put them back on the grill unwrapped. I thought for sure they'd fall apart. Oddly though, the last stage actually allowed the ribs to tighten up a bit. Maybe this is why this method works so well. So for this last stage, keep in mind that the last hour is up to you. Internal temp of your ribs are done at about 190 degrees. They should be at the least cooked to 165 to avoid illness, obviously. It's really up to you if you want to throw them back on at this point. You can decide for yourself how much longer you want to go, but the rule here is a full hour unwrapped. It's important to remember too to sauce your ribs only in the last 10 to 20 minutes of this phase. Saucing them too early can lead to the sugar burning and the sauce drying out, like mine here. Don't be like me. I think I sauced them early just out of habit. You see, when I've cooked ribs in the past, I've used my own method, called the 4-to-1 method is what I would say, the last hour being sauced and wrapped. For whatever reason, I decided to sauce them too early. Just don't do it until the last 10-20 minutes. Once they're done, pull them off, let them rest for at least 15 minutes. It might help to let them rest like a butt wrapped in foil in a dry cooler for up to 30 to 45 minutes as well. Just remember that regardless of how you cook them, most folks will be pleased. For me though, I'm striving for perfection. With that said, I hope you learned something. I know I did. So join me next time as I continue my quest to perfect my method of cooking baby back ribs.